Ladies and gentlemen, in a game of chess that you might play, it might be a bit of a rarity for both you and your opponent to have their queens by the end of the game, just one of them. Well, sometimes it's quite shocking when two queens end up on the board and actually hang around, but what if I told you that a couple of days ago at the European Blitz Championship, a super Grandmaster by the name of Krzysztof Duda had 3 queens on the board for himself at once. It was an absolutely insane game, and when looking for thumbnail ideas for this video, we found one from the New York Post that was called "The Man with 3 Girlfriends," and it was an article about their life together, and I thought it would make for a hilarious thumbnail. Before we get into the game, I just want to say that I don't believe Jan Krzysztof Duda follows that lifestyle, but I thought the thumbnail was too hilarious to pass up. So Jan, I'm sorry if I've put you in that situation. I hope that nobody takes it for what it is or what it isn't, or yeah, it's just the thumbnail looked hilarious. Anyway, let's get into the action. This was an absolutely wild game. We've got Duda from Poland and Demchenko, very, very strong Blitz and Rapid player and classical player, but I've lost to him many times in Blitz. The game begins with the move e4. Black responds with e5. You got a Russian Grandmaster. He's playing with the black pieces. The first move is e4. It's a very high probability that he is going to play the move e5. We have knight f3, knight c6, and Duda goes for the Italian. Spanish. Ruy Lopez. Italian, my brain went faster. My mouth went faster than my brain. The Italian is bishop to c4. Bishop b5 is a very good try for the advantage. Black responds with a6. This is known as Morphy's defense, or in modern times, pawn attack bishop. White drops back to a4, and now black doesn't develop the natural move knight f6, but rather plays d6. d6 comes with pluses and minuses. The plus is that it reinforces the center with the pawn quite nicely, and probably black's next move is bishop d7, breaking the spin completely. The drawback of this move, and another positive of this move, is the fact that it's not a main line, so actually you have a very good chance of throwing your opponent slightly off. This is something that Magnus actually plays a lot in Blitz. It's a very, very good move. He's played it against Firouzja and other strong GMs, and the idea for black is to play g6, bishop g7, and put the bishop on d7. Very non-standard way of developing, but in the Ruy Lopez, but it becomes like a King's Indian defense very quickly. c3 has 2 purposes. Number 1, you want to build into the middle and try to get a pawn there on d4. Number 2, you want to rescue the bishop down to c2. So that's kind of the stuff that you are looking to accomplish here. Black plays bishop d7 as planned, castles, g6, d4, and bishop g7. So everybody is accomplishing everything that they want. Black has the moves that I've mentioned. White has the moves that I've mentioned. And now Duda plays the move h3. h3 is just always a useful move because you never want to allow this bishop to pin the knight, because from there, black can actually begin chopping in the center. Notice that neither side is clarifying the central situation, because why would you put the pawn on c3? Now you can't develop the knight there. Why would you take on d4 and allow white to just have 2 giant pawns in the center and just golden development with the knights, right? So the players are keeping the tension with h3 and h6. Rook e1, knight e7. At some point, white is going to run out of improving moves. You know, white brings the rook to the middle, anticipating an opening. Bishop 2e3 is a very decent move. It's the farthest the bishop can go without getting taken. And here, Demchenko played a strange move. He played b6, which almost looks like an over-the-board mouse slip. Like, it doesn't look like that move makes sense. You know, like for example, if white develops naturally here with knight d2, I don't exactly know what the idea of this move is. There must be some idea, but to be honest with you, I cannot really explain it. Maybe he wants for c5 in the future, so knight d8, knight takes d7 back, and then pawn. I don't know. To my eye, the move b5 at least looks like very natural. I don't know if it's a very good move because this pawn can just become a target with a4, but b5 looks more natural. I don't know. I can't really explain b6. But here, Duda plays d5. d5 is very interesting. So you are completely committed now to making this trade. I mean, I suppose you could back up, but the knight is going to arrive on c4 and take your bishop. So this trade is very good for white. It's good for white because in normal King's Indian positions, black is going to go for f5. So black is going to attack white with these pawns. However, a major piece in that attack is the light-squared bishop. That bishop usually stands exactly where I've highlighted and then kind of patrols and escorts the pawns down the board. It's known that trading off that bishop is generally a win for the player with the white pieces. You really slow down these pawns. because even if they all arrive on dark squares, the light squares become super weak since that light squared bishop is no longer there. So Duda here plays an interesting move. He anticipates the incoming assault that black is actually throwing at him without castling. You know, just so you understand, this is already kind of problematic. Like if you don't play knight fd2, and by the way, you can get your bishop trapped. Dude, that's not going to happen at this level, but just so you understand, like this bishop is kind of in the way for white in many, many cases. So what white often does is builds a little house for the bishop. So f3, and then f4, bishop f2 is super, super common for the King's Indian. The bishop likes to camp there with the king, and black continues on with g5. So again, normally there is a knight on f6, and this knight is usually somewhere in here as well. So you have two knights. It's very rare in King's Indian. There's just a loner knight like roaming the board because you need the pawns to escort down to the king. So Duda here plays c4. c4 is a good move. In general, in King's Indian style positions, this one comes out of e4, e5. In King's Indian positions, white tries to expand on the queen side and destroy black. And black tries to expand on the king side and destroy white. It's a beautiful cat and mouse game. You know, first one to strike is usually going. It's like a heavyweight fight, like a good old-fashioned heavyweight brawl. So we have knight back to b7, preemptively moving out of the way, knight c3, and h5. Again, if these knights were here, black's attack would actually be something. It's going to take black a little bit of coordinating to get the attack right. And by the way, you see that light square that white controls? Yeah, if there was a bishop, this attack would be very successful, but there is no bishop. So Duda plays b4. Now Demchenko should consider g4, but he castles, which kind of makes sense. I mean, the king is going to go to h8, rook g8, bishop f6, g4. The thing about castling this way, opposite side castling, is you castle into the fire. I play c5, and I mean, I take your soul. You actually, it looks like you're winning a pawn, so you get very happy. Then I play queen b3, rook b1, and queen b8 mate. Like, you just legitimately cannot prevent that. You can delay it, but it will happen. So you cannot castle out. So instead he castles this way, knight b3, and here comes the other knight. Now again, because Demchenko played a Ruy Lopez and we are not in a King's Indian defense, it's going to be a lot harder for black to get all the pieces in the right spots. But sometimes as white sort of marches in and tries to burn down the village, the army has escaped out into the forest and is ready to kind of launch a counterattack. So that's what's happening right now. I mean, Duda is coming in. And he's got the heavy artillery, his bishop on f2, his knights on c3, b3. It's really, King's Indian games are very fascinating because it looks like there's nothing you can really win here. You know, there's nothing significant even if you break through on that side of the board. Whereas here is your king, right? So rook b8, and you would think we need to go attack the weaknesses. Maybe we take, so we isolate this weakness, a4, a5. No, actually here Duda plays c6, which is sort of counterintuitive because you're like, why would he stop his attack? Now when Demchenko moves his queen, you know, let's say Duda plays b5, a5, where's his attack? Like, imagine in a worst case scenario, maybe something like this happens. Where's white's attack, right? White is going to have to sacrifice. That's what you're going to have to do. You put your knights in some way, chop down, push the pawns through. So here, Duda begins an operation which is just absolutely fascinating. It shows you the kind of level of chess we're at. For example, if I watch somebody in Guess the Elo do this, I would immediately begin yelling profanities. But if I'm seeing Duda do it, I'm like, oh, wow, I mean, I need to really respect this. I mean, this man is a cultured individual. Try to guess what I'm talking about while I take a sip of my Natalie's Tangerine Juice. I'm not sponsored, by the way. This is a channel sponsored by G Fuel. That maneuver, ladies and gentlemen, is the move king to f1. The king hugs the rook and bishop goodbye. He's going to go give the queen a kiss. And Duda is running with the king. Absolutely fascinating that you can do this. As the players have a mutual connect 4 in the center of the board. Well, actually, there's a connect 5. Because everything is blocked up, the king can actually just run. And the king does run. I mean, Duda just walks his king over to d2. Like, you know, no hesitation. Absolutely no hesitation. Here comes knight h6. The maneuver is there, and g4. So Demchenko has arrived. I mean, Demchenko has fulfilled his full prophecy, and he has arrived. Like, he is there. Now, here comes a4. Notice that he's not taking a4. This is a free pawn, by the way. Totally a free pawn. But believe it or not, taking it is actually much worse for the other guy. Because the other guy's going to have to go all the way back to c8. He has no other move. He goes to g2, he gets trapped. So he has to go all the way back to c8, at which point I take on h5, and actually you've opened up everything for me because I moved my king out of the way. Fascinating stuff. Absolutely fascinating stuff. This is almost like a genius way of dealing with a pawn attack, and you see the problem. There's no light-scored bishop, right? So bishop f6, king c2, why not? I mean, we've gone to d2, we might as well go to c2 as well. And now Demchenko's like, you know what? This is a very clever thing you're doing. King f7. The problem is that he also can't run to the queen side. Because white has a lot more space here, the nature of a spatially dominant position is that you can roam freely, even up to c4 in many cases, because black just simply can't attack you. This king cannot go to a8. White is going to completely bulldoze, right? That's what's going to happen. So, and here Duda plays b5, which is amazing. Now here, Demchenko can close it all down. This is probably what he should have done. He should have gone for this. He should have probably closed it in this kind of way. Just totally killed it off. I think he didn't want to do this because you're never going to win this with black, and I think he was in a must-win situation. I believe he lost the first game between the two. I could be wrong, but I think he just didn't want to do this because all your chances to win are basically gone, and you're going to wait around for white to just basically potentially sack through on that pawn. So, I don't know. He could have played g3 at any moment, but he played a5, and we got knight back to b1. Bishop h4, trying to trade. We have takes on g4 now, because Duda sees the opportunity to now go rook h1, take, and hg. Now, right now, Duda can play rook h1, and it's very good, and he does it. He plays rook h1, seizing the control of the file, but here comes black. Now we have knight d2. King g7. The player's time is ticking. Remember, this is a 3-minute blitz game, so time is low. We're about to see some absolutely wild stuff. Knight c4, and now Demchenko closes everything down. We have queen e2, and we have knight back to f7. Okay, Demchenko has finally decided that there is absolutely nothing to play for in this position, so I'm going to close everything down. Duda is not finished moving his king for absolutely no reason, so he plays king to c3. Black plays queen to d8, because he has potential ideas of hitting h4, or maybe getting the rook down to h2, and then winning this g2 pawn. It's all going to come down to the queen moving out of the way, trading everything on the h-file, and winning g2 in the future. So Duda says, now's my time to shine. Kaboom, kablam. Knight takes a5 has arrived. Now, if you do not accept the offering, I will go knight b7, I will play a5, or I will go knight b3 and I will play a5 all the same. So, you might as well take the knight because I'm giving you a knight. Knight takes a5, and now I have a, b, c versus c, and the equation means that a and b pawns are probably going to make it through. So, rook down to h2. Anytime you have rooks on the same file, you want to do this in a way to trade advantageously in case your opponent is goofy enough to take. In this case, it's actually not so bad, but there's absolutely no reason to grant your opponent a pawn one square before promotion, so Duda jumps into b7. We have queen to c8. I don't know why queen c8 was played. I think he should have been a little bit more aggressive here, but we have queen to c8. Now we have a5. Now here, Demchenko decides to sacrifice this other rook for the knight and the pawn. Now the queen and the c pawn should be able to stop the a and b pawn, but it's blitz. Anything can happen. That's why we're here. King to b4! The king is ready to escort the children to school, but what about queen a7? I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't get a chance to ask. Queen a7 looks natural. Maybe Demchenko was afraid of something like this? I don't know, but again, I didn't have a chance to ask him. Knight back to e7, and now Duda says, oh, you don't want to take my rook? Okay, here comes my rook on the c-file. And now what are you doing over here? Your knights are too far from g2. That used to be my Achilles heel, but you can't get to it anymore. So since you can't get to it anymore, oh, queen a7? Oh, you think you're going to get to d4. That's adorable. And this is the sign of a really good player. Anticipating danger, allowing it, but setting up everything to deal with it. Queen d4, rook c4 would have not been possible because queen would have taken the rook. So what does Duda do? Rook a2 to prevent check because rook c4 kicks the queen right back out. I mean, the queen, I guess, could go to g1, but rook c7, b6, a6, etc. So rook a2 is a nice move. Knight comes back to g6 because he thinks he has to create counterplay on g2, but here comes queen c4. And if you arrive on h4, c7 is falling much faster than anything matters on the g2 square. So black jumps in with the queen to e3, and Duda says, okay, a6, here we go. Pawn to a6, queen back to a7, queen c7, we've arrived, and like I told you, a, b, c versus c, a and b are gonna get through, a and b are getting through. Queen d4 check. Queen back to c4, queen a7, king a5 is escorting the b pawn forward. And Demchenko has tried to crash through, but the problem is we have too much stuff going on the queen side. And even though you've made it through, my king is completely safe among the queen and the two rooks, all right? It's like the king dancing around in a courtyard with snipers on the balconies. King's right there, but you can't get close, right? So a8 queen. We have knight to d4, b7, f3, Demchenko, and now Duda pauses the clock with 5 seconds. Why? Because he has nothing to promote. You see, to make a third queen, you don't have one. Most chess sets don't have one. And if you promote an upside down rook, which normally is a queen, it's a rook, because it's literally a rook. It doesn't matter that it's upside down or sideways, it doesn't matter. Whatever you put on the square is that. You can't just keep a pawn there either, that's illegal. So Duda pauses the clock, goes to another chess set, finds a third queen, plops it down, and ladies and gentlemen, young Krzysztof Duda has 3 queens on the board. And he is the main character of a New York Post article. And it's still kind of interesting because Demchenko gets very close to promoting himself. The problem is the queens are mad. After they're born, they're like Komodo dragons. They're almost fully formed, pissed off, and ready to rip your head off. Queen to g8. King f6. And we have this. Queen a, f8. Nobody can protect the knight. Nobody can get to this king. It's mate in 6. Demchenko resigns. And the man with 3 queens reigns supreme.